That's a good reminder right off the bat. If you would silence your cell phones, that would be appreciated. Good evening, and thank you all for coming out tonight to learn about your candidates in the Mount Vernon City Council races. I'm Cheryl Splain, lead reporter with Knox Pages, and Jack Slomenda, some of you have met him already. He's here with me, and he will help me ask the questions. We appreciate the chance to host this candidate conversation. This election is a little bit unusual because we have so many write-in candidates, and we felt that it was important to help the constituents meet their representatives or future representatives and get to know them a little bit better. We are able to host events like this through your support, and if you appreciate this kind of events and this kind of local journalism that make events like this possible, then I do want to take a second and invite you to become a member. You can go to knoxpages.com/members, and a little added incentive, if you do it within the next 48 hours, we will give you a 25% discount off of all of your memberships. So, 48 hours. All you need to do is enter the coupon code VOTE25 at checkout. This is a question and answer format. It's not a debate. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to their question. We have Josiah Salinas and Evan Guillory. They're in the front row here. They're with their students in Mount Vernon High School's government and politics classes, and they will serve as timers for us. So when the candidate has 30 seconds left, they will hold up a sign, and then 15 seconds and 0 seconds. So we do appreciate you keeping us on track, and we do ask the candidates to be respectful, of the time frame. We asked each candidate to submit a short bio that included their qualifications, the top 3 significant issues they thought were facing the city, and how they would address those issues. And you will find those responses on knoxpages.com under the Elections tab. The third ward candidate bios ran on October 14th, and the third ward write-in candidates are Taylor Jacklin, I'm sorry.
It's a write-in campaign, that's important.
Jennifer Shoman, and Greg Yashnyk. And the at-large candidates' bios ran on October 15th, and the at-large candidates are Dale Miller, Mel Severns, and Alan Reed. Amber Keener is also running as an at-large candidate, but she could not attend tonight's candidate conversation. We drew the questions from the questionnaires, the bios that the candidates submitted, from community members, and then our Knox Pages team. Jack will join me in asking the questions. Some of the questions are directed to a specific candidate. Some questions are directed to all of the candidates. They did not know the subject areas or the questions in advance. So with that, I guess we'll get started. And we did draw numbers to see who would go first tonight, and that honor is going to fall to Mr. Miller. So he'll be the first one to respond to the first question. So the question is transparency an issue in city government? Why or why not? And what would you change? Mr. Miller?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I do believe transparency is somewhat of an issue in our local government. I've attended several of the council meetings and stuff like that, also attended several of the committee meetings and things like that, and I feel that sometimes we get in a little bit of too much of a hurry to get legislation passed through, and we don't always give our constituents opportunity to chime in, kind of see what's going on, and give them an opportunity to actually voice their opinions prior to taking a vote on the legislation. So yes, transparency is somewhat of an issue. I think one of the good examples of that would be what happened with the Edgewood Road project and stuff like that. I think people felt like they didn't get a chance to ring in on what was going on with that and everything. Therefore, they kind of took matters into their own hand, got a petition, got it on the ballot, and kind of turned it around. Whether you agree with what was going on with that or not, I think it's really important that the fact that, maybe in hindsight, maybe the people could have had a little bit more time to focus on the views that was going on there and everything like that, and give a little bit additional input.
Mr. Severns?
Sure, I don't believe it's too much of an issue under our current administration. I first started in 2021 and might have felt a little bit then, but honestly the last couple years I believe the transparency has been about as good as it could be. I believe the public always has adequate time to chime in. And I think the interesting thing about that is I have an email address, I have a phone number. We invite people to talk to us, to email us, and some do, but honestly, very few do on the scale of, if you think of about 17,000 city residents. But I don't believe that transparency is too much of an issue presently. Thanks.
Ms. Shoman.
So I do believe that, I'm gonna counter that, and say that transparency for me, the use of the suspension of the rules and the emergency clause, I think they're sometimes overused. I think in the last meeting alone that there were 6 items up for first reading, 5 of them passed with the rules suspended, and I think there were 10 things on the agenda that were emergencies. And that's pretty, like Dale Miller was saying, that's pretty consistent for what we see. And I do think that that limits the ability of the people to comment and be engaged with the issues that we have. So I would say that those are 2 things that I would see to change as moving forward. Sorry.
Mr. Jacklin.
I'm going to agree with Mr. Miller and Ms. Shoman that I think that there's an overuse right now of the emergency, and it's eroding the trust that people have in the system, and it's making it feel less clear what is happening, and it doesn't give people adequate time to interact with the legislation that is being passed, and it's limiting people's voices and the ability for them to be engaged.
Mr. Reed.
Well, I think as far as transparency, I think it goes further than just the opinions on the emergency clause. I know Mr. Miller alluded to the fact about the Edgewood Road project. Yes, there were some strong opinions, differing opinions on that project. I have to admit, I probably wasn't as educated on that as I wished I would have been. And I'm not sure if that is council's fault or my fault or just not following up. But I will say, council is responsible for educating our constituents and letting them know what is happening, what methods they are taking to follow up. And if elected to council, that would be my goal, is listen to my people and let them know what we are doing, to let them get their input on that.
Mr. Yashnyk.
My view on transparency is if there is an issue that is perceived, that means that it is. So if people think that there is a problem with transparency, we do need to do what we can do to improve that. So the way I look at it is, should I be elected, what is my role going to be to improve the communication, not only between the administration and the constituency, but also what do I need to do as a council person to take information from the public and make sure that it's in the administration's ear. So it is a two-way thing. And I think our role as city council is very important in that communication, where we can make sure that the information that needs to be disseminated gets to the public, as well as the information from the public getting back to the administration.
And this is a quick follow-up to that. Do you support using the emergency clause? Why or why not, and under what circumstances? Mr. Jacklin.
I'm going to say yes, but in the case of an emergency. And when you're using it 5, 6, 7 times a session, either we are in a horrible amount of trouble, or those aren't genuine emergencies.
Mr. Reed?
I'm not against the concept of the emergency clause, but then again, I would not want to be in favor of using it for everything that comes across council's table. There are going to be emergency situations, primarily probably financial situations. Financial deals do sometimes need to be made rather quickly, and they can be drug out, okay? Other issues that are not so urgent, they probably would not be in favor of using it, but there are situations where it should be.
Mr. Yashnyk.
I think the use of the emergency clause is in a lot of cases misunderstood. It's a poor choice of language in parliamentary procedure. So I think just getting the public to understand what it means and why it's used would go a huge way forward to understanding why council is doing what it's doing. So, in a lot of cases when it is used, it's not an emergency, but it's just a parliamentary procedure that is enacted to make sure that the legislation goes into effect as it's passed instead of 90 days after it's passed.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, and along those lines, I would say also that the emergency clause probably is a little bit misunderstood and everything. And I was under the wrong impression when I first started to attend council meetings, and I thought that everything had to be passed on an emergency basis. Whereas after, examining it a little bit further and asking questions to other members of the city and council, that I found out that the emergency clause was more of a just made it go in effect as soon as the legislation was passed and not have to wait a certain amount of time before the legislation was adopted. So yeah, I do believe there's a little bit of misunderstanding about the emergency clause, but however, I do question if, like Mr. Jacklin had stated, I do question if it has to be used 4 or 5 times in every session. Average session passes about 8 to 10 pieces of legislation. It seems like an awful lot of those, the emergency clause is added on to the end of that legislation.
Mr. Severns.
Yes, the emergency clause, just so you understand. So if we introduce a piece of legislation, there can be up to 3 readings of that, which is actually 4 weeks minimum, and maybe 5 if we have an extra Monday in a month. So the public has 4 or 5 weeks to respond to legislation that comes to council. The emergency clause is there so that if it does pass, it can be signed immediately by the mayor rather than having to wait another 30 days. When if you were to buy something off of somebody, you would expect to get your money now and not have to wait 30 days to do that. So that's just a small example of what that means. Basically, the public has at least a month, 4 weeks, to respond to legislation. An emergency clause just means that it can be signed and immediately effective. And some of those things have to move on quickly. So, when we have to pay a bill or we're trying to get a bid or whatever, it's important to move quickly on those.
Ms. Shoman.
So I do believe that the emergency clause was created for a reason, and I do think there are times that it's necessary. I do not believe that the way that the city uses it is correct. And there's also a side effect of the emergency clause. If it passes with 2/3 of the vote, it cannot be put as a referendum on the ballot. So that is an added side effect on why people question this emergency. Because, for example, Edgewood, if it had passed with one more person saying yes, we wouldn't have been able to put it on the ballot. The voices of the people would not have been heard. And that is why I think so many people think that using the emergency the way that we use it is not what it was intended for and not the correct way that we should be doing things here in the city.
Next question. What are your budget priorities? Mr. Severns.
Well, I currently chair Streets and Public Buildings, and we have a lot of money we have to spend over the next many years. But budget priorities to me are safety, infrastructure, and those are probably the 2 biggest. Safety and infrastructure are critical. And I happen to be, like I said, over streets. We need to keep our streets in good condition. I get a certain amount of budget every year, but I wish I had about 4 times that amount to keep our streets in good shape. It's very difficult to do that with the amount of money that we have, but there are so many needs in the city that we can only appropriate so much money to that. But I think I still would go back to safety and infrastructure.
Ms. Shoman.
So I also think that infrastructure is one of the key budget priorities. I think as we look towards growing and as we just move forward, the infrastructure definitely needs work. It's aging, the water, the sewer, the wastewater. I think those are key ones that, you know, we're looking at millions of dollars to replace it, and those things are not wants, they're needs. So I think for me, those kind of major infrastructure updates that really have to happen should be our budget priorities.
Mr. Jacklin.
Thank you. I'm gonna echo what everybody else has said so far and say infrastructure. Mount Vernon is growing. It is expanding in all directions, and especially in the third ward. I received a letter that said they couldn't guarantee there wasn't lead in our water. And I think that that's something that we would like to be addressed. I would like to be certain that our water is clean and that our sanitation is run and our sanitation lines are running well. So I think that that would be my priority, is to make sure that that money is spent installing new water lines and new sanitation lines. Thank you.
Mr. Reed.
Well, not to sound repetitive, but kind of echo what a lot of people have already said. Yes, safety is a priority. There are issues I have seen around town, many in the ways of streets and lighting, which I do think need addressed, and I would like to address some of these at council also. Infrastructure, yeah, kind of specifically water. I know water has been an issue in the past few years, and I think we really need to work on that more and make sure our water is readily accessible and safe and good for us all. So those are probably my concerns as far as spending.
Mr. Miller.
Yes. Not to beat a dead horse into the ground or anything, but I pretty much agree with what everybody else has said up here. I would put infrastructure as a top priority. And there's a lot of things going on within our infrastructure that's kind of prohibiting us from doing some smart growth and stuff like that within the community. Yeah, there's obviously some traffic problems and things like that, but I look at some of the conditions of the roads and stuff like that and trying to find a very easy balance between preserving the historical part of the city and stuff like that. We have a lot of brick streets and everything. A lot of those brick streets need a lot of attention. There's a lot of people out there that would like to see those roads paved over, and there's others that want to, you know, keep intact the heritage and the history of the city. So it's really quite a little bit of a balance. But yeah, infrastructure would be number one, and the safety of our citizens would definitely be right up in there as a top priority.
This next question is for Ms. Shoman. You noted that infrastructure is already strained, and you advocate for a thoughtful pause and comprehensive review of current and future development plans. How long of a pause, and how do you assess what's truly necessary to meet demand?
I think that involves community input, and I believe that a thoughtful pause is, you know, you have 1,500 new units going into Mount Vernon right now, and seeing as that gets developed, what kind of strain is that really going to put on the school system? What kind of traffic control are we going to have to put into place? What are we going to have to invest into our safety officials and the police force, the fire station, those kinds of things. So I think seeing as things grow and as we see the results of what we're doing, that's what I mean by a thoughtful pause. I think it is, we're seeing a lot of growth, and we need to balance that with our infrastructure needs and what we're going to move forward with and really plan ahead.
Mr. Yashnyk, you mentioned traffic flow on Coshocton Avenue, and you said that we need to work together to develop and implement solutions that create access and minimize the impacts on current residents of the area. Who would you work with that isn't already perhaps being done, and what are your solutions?
Again, I think we all need to be involved. The current state of things is Coshocton Avenue is the retail and medical services hub for not only the city of Mount Vernon, but for the entire county as well. So as residential development occurs, it really doesn't matter what part of the county it happens in, it's going to increase traffic flow on Coshocton Avenue. So what can we do to alleviate that? It's more than just road improvements. You know, can we focus retail development or medical service development in other areas of the community to take some of that strain away? what can we do with roads? And what can we do with residential development to make it more strategic or take some of the load off of the thing? So there's a lot of different avenues that we can take to help improve that issue.
Mr. Jacklin, you listed as your first priority the need to balance the city's growth with retaining a small town identity and values. How specifically do you plan to do that?
Well, I think when you look at something like the Vernon View project, that clearly did not resonate with the citizens of Mount Vernon. And I think when you take a look at historically what this city has looked like, what it had, what areas we've embraced as far as, it was mentioned the brick roads. When I went and attended the school, when they were, the school had a meeting to discuss building new schools, right? The school system did. They talked about how it was very popular among Mount Vernon, our neighborhood schools. And that takes a heavy amount of coordination between the city and the school system to be able to develop neighborhoods where kids can walk to school. That is a coordinated effort. And those are the things that I think people want to see.
This next question will be for all of the candidates. Everyone acknowledges Coshocton Avenue is stressed with the amount of vehicle traffic. Do your solutions to improve traffic include anything related to public transit or bicycles? Ms. Shoman.
So I think that is the public dialogue. I don't know that any solutions have come up with Coshocton Avenue. That is something that we need to work together on. I do believe that one of the agenda items for the city is to ensure safety with sidewalks and bike paths and things like that and connecting them all. So I definitely think that that'll come to the table at some point, but I don't have all the answers, and I think this is why we're a community and we come together to come up with the solutions that best fit us and what we want to see and how we want to grow.
Mr. Jacklin?
Couldn't make it easy. Couldn't go to you next, could it? Could you repeat the question?
Yes. Everyone acknowledges Coshocton Avenue is stressed with the amount of vehicle traffic. Do your solutions to improve traffic include anything related to public transit or bicycles?
I'm gonna answer personally first. I would love to see more bike lanes. I enjoy riding my bicycle, and I think when people imagine, childhoods, they think about people like kids riding their bikes, but with the advent of the cell phone and people refusing to get off them while they're driving, it's gotten more dangerous. And as a parent, I would say I'm very reluctant to let my child ride on a road. Whereas when I was growing up, that was something that was very appropriate. And, it was a part of our childhood. I think adding bike lanes to those areas would increase that sort of traffic and could alleviate. Do I think it would fix the problem on Coshocton? No, we're not suddenly gonna have 3,000 cyclists. But could it alleviate some of it? Absolutely.
Mr. Reed?
Yes, traffic is obviously an issue on Coshocton Avenue. And I think from experience in the past, I think our Department of Transportation has not done justice to Mount Vernon with their proposals at times, but I think public transit and bicycles, yes, good ideas. I don't know if we have room for expansion as far as more bicycle lanes out there. I mean, we've expanded it probably about as much as we can, so maybe more options as far as public transit might be an option, maybe to loosen up some of the traffic, or maybe explore ways if there are to widen. I think we probably would need to widen if they are going to consider more bicycle lanes though.
Mr. Yashnyk?
I believe everything needs to be accounted for in a solution. There is no one ideal solution to the problem. So yes, expanding of public transportation, alternative forms of transportation. Again, relocating some of the services to other parts of the community to alleviate traffic from that area or give people other options. So yeah, everything needs to be considered as part of a solution to alleviate traffic through that corridor.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, everyone's aware of the problems on Coshocton Avenue and everything, and there's several different solutions that could be looked into. But I would think before making any kind of judgment as to what should be done, there's probably some studies that we could do and look into it a little bit further. You know, public transportation sounds like a great idea and everything, but then is it financially responsible to add a bunch of public transportation if it's going to cost us more than the benefits that we're going to receive from it? You know, bicycle lanes, yes, of course it's a good idea. I'm not so sure how that's going to work in something that's very commercial and very, you know, like in a shopping area. I mean, I can't imagine taking my groceries home on a bicycle. So I don't know. It would alleviate some. I just don't know how much of it that it would alleviate. But before just shooting off a cuff answer, I think we probably would need to look at it, you know, start to study some of this and start gathering some data so we can sit down and make an intelligent decision on it.
Mr. Severns?
I'm a bicyclist, and people who bike as much as I used to bike, on average, are hit. 40% of those bicyclists get hit by a car. So the idea of adding bicycle lanes out there is a good idea, but there's no room, and it would cost literally millions to widen Coshocton Avenue to add bike lanes. So it's a good idea, but I don't think it's very safe either in a high traffic area like that. Public transit is good. I don't know how many people are going to use public transit in Mount Vernon. Maybe it will be used a little bit more often. Greg touched on something, but one of my solutions to alleviating some of the traffic out there would be to have somebody invest money over toward Harcourt and some land and put a grocery on that side of town so that not everybody has to go to Coshocton Avenue. I think there are ways, and that would just be development in the community to try to develop shopping in other areas.
Jack is going to ask the next few questions.
Mr. Miller, you said the voice of the people has been missing from council meetings. Do you have a plan to involve residents in decision making?
Yeah, somewhat, I believe. I believe that the fact that, you know, I think Knox Pages does an excellent job of trying to, you know, report on council meetings and such. It's too bad that the Mount Vernon News doesn't no longer report on those meetings like it did at one time. I think there's ways that we can encourage the public to get a little bit more involved. I know at one time the mayor had spoke about adding a media person to the payroll and stuff like that to try to, you know, get the word out a little bit more about what's going on with the city and stuff like that. So I think that would be one solution. We just need to find a way to get the citizens more informed and, you know, give them a little bit more of a way to where they could participate. And part of that is the fact that, you know, there's so many pieces of legislation that get passed after the first reading because the rules are suspended, and I really don't understand how that gives the people that much of an opportunity to see what's going on. So I think if we would not rush through everything so often and stuff like that, that alone would be one solution to give the people a little bit more of an idea of what's going on and give them an opportunity to participate.
Mr. Reed, you mentioned public safety as a concern and that you would seek projects to ensure continued safety. What does that mean? What projects? What's lacking?
A couple projects which I have seen are concerned around the city as far as safety. There seems to be a number of areas in the city where it's very dark at night and just not very well lit. And these are really, I'm looking at some heavily populated and walked areas by the public, which are not very well lit. I'd just like to see some more adequate lighting in some of those also. Another one I really would like to see addressed are some of the intersections on our brick streets, particularly Burgess Street, Hamtramck Street, even Vine and Oak Streets. I know the city has done a great job with their Brick Street projects, upgrading them as much as they can. I know that's an expensive one, and they've done a good job, but I'm thinking at least if we could fix some of those intersections, because I've had people come to me and say, my car bottomed out and that cost me $3,000 to fix that. And I just think we're doing a discredit to the residents if we don't just at least get them fixed temporarily before we can do a whole re-bricking job.
Mr. Severns, You said you are not pleased with the number of heavy trucks on inner city streets and mentioned east-west traffic as especially problematic. This question is twofold. One, does the number of heavy trucks extend to waste hauling companies? And two, what is your recommendation to fix the east-west traffic?
What was the first question, sorry?
Sure. Does the number of heavy trucks extend to waste hauling companies?
Yes, it does, and some of those trucks are very heavy. So, and I know we've had conversations with those companies about not driving over our curbs. I don't know. I get frustrated because I walk every morning and I see the trucks drive over and cut the corner short. I don't know why they're doing that, but it does include those. So one of the solutions would be to not have so many companies hauling trash in Mount Vernon. And I know that goes against free market, and I get that. But if we had one company doing it, we could probably work with them a little bit better to see how we could, alleviate some of the heavy trucks and the number of days that they're in the city. The State Route 13 reroute project, even though it is north and south, will help to alleviate some of the trucks going east and west through the city because of the rerouting that we will do. So, yep, thank you.
This question is for all the candidates. What is your solution to a new courthouse? Do you have a cap on how much you would spend to implement this solution? We'll start with Mr. Reed.
Very good question. I think as far as the new courthouse, I think we need to better serve our people as far as one central location. Because it seems like there's so many offices spread around town where they'll have to go over to West Chestnut to get this piece of paper, and then they got to go up to City Hall to get this paper. And then they'll have to go downtown with the old COTC to get this paper. I think there needs to be a plan to have more of a centralized location to better serve our people. As far as budget, don't know if I can answer that question yet. Hoping that our council, we can look more into how much we can spend and be fiscally responsible however we do it.
Mr. Yashnyk?
Yes, I do believe that's an issue. One of the top issues that I had was the Northgate facility that currently houses the courthouse. That's been a fiscal drain on the city for decades, and it's time to do something about that. So I firmly believe that functions should be consolidated to make it easy for the users of those services to be able to use them efficiently. As this project has gone on, I've seen it evolve based on making it as fiscally responsible as we can. The opportunity came up for the city to move administrative offices into the COTC building. They took advantage of that because it was going to minimize cost. So again, we do need to be fiscally responsible. We do need to get out of that Gay Street building, and I think we've done a fairly good job so far. But as far as the courthouse, we need to get that centralized, and I am in favor of keeping that in the central downtown area.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, I think there's several creative ways that this could be addressed. I'd bring your attention to the fact of what was done with City Hall when there was talks of building a new City Hall at the cost of about $10 million. And then there was some very creative ideas that brought forth the opportunity. I believe it was Mr. Sawyers was heading that, to where we was able to use an existing building and get into an existing building with having plenty of room to grow into it and everything at much, much less cost. There's so many unused buildings in our city and stuff like that could be repurposed and refurbished rather than doing the new construction that would cost in the neighborhood of 10 times the amount of what it would cost to rehab an existing structure. So yes, I think to be fiscally responsible to the city, we need to use more creative ideas like that and come up with solutions.
Mr. Severns?
Yes, so this is right down my alley, streets and public buildings. I believe that, the Justice Center has to meet certain standards. We cannot ignore the standards that the state law requires for us to have in that building. So I think moving that into the current city hall is a good idea fiscally, rather than building a brand new building. And so what kind of cost will that be? Everything, I say that everything costs millions or tens of millions, and it takes 7 years to do everything, it seems like. And it's just a reality. You have to plan for grants, and all these things take a lot of time, advance planning to do. But I believe moving it to where we are presently planning to move that is the right thing. We do have to get out of the building on the current building. That building is falling down. So I like where we're heading, and it's hard to put a price tag. I have not seen specific numbers yet.
Ms. Shoman.
So I agree. I don't know how I would give you a budget on that. I do know that we, of course, want to be fiscally responsible, and we want to use our resources to the best of our ability. And I totally think that, revitalizing the downtown and using existing structures makes the most sense. These are things, no one wants to see empty buildings, and no one wants to see millions of dollars being spent for something new that could have been creatively resourced in a different way and still fit the needs of the community. So I think to what everyone is kind of saying, that to keep the character of Mount Vernon and to save on costs, that these things, we need to look at all the plans and make sure that we come up as a community to what fits best. But it does make sense to see what we currently have before building new.
Mr. Jacklin.
It's going to be a heck of a way to end this one. I don't know enough about this to make a comment on it. I would do some research first. I think you should always move forward with the public in mind, being fiscally responsible, but I don't know enough about this to really make an in-depth comment on it.
This question is also for all of the candidates. If you received a $1 million grant to use for the city in any way you wanted, what would you want to do with it and why? We'll start with Mr. Reed.
Good question. $1 million, it would probably go very fast, so we would have to prioritize. First of all, a lot of planning, a lot of feedback from the people. Projects to pursue it, as we've talked about tonight, infrastructure, keep them advanced. I mean, utilities, they are going to wear out over time, obviously, and they are very expensive, so we need to keep on top of that. And our street improvements, they wear out over time too. Things that are going to be disposable, yes, we need to keep up with them instead of waiting till it's going to be too late, and then we really are under the gun with them. Keeping up on top of the safety and infrastructure would be the priorities.
Mr. Severns.
Yes, $1 million will not go very far, but I believe what I would do would be to invite public opinion and input on the best way to use the $1 million. And I think that if a piece of legislation were involved in that, I would not put an emergency clause on it. Because I think that input would be great. What could we do with $1 million? Frankly, folks, that sounds like a lot of money. And if you had it in your pocket, it would be. But when you're looking at the cost of streets and sidewalks, all those things, safety, adding officers, whatever, a new fire station, those things, they cost a lot of money. But I think $1 million would be fun just to have public meetings, get some good input, and spend on the people.
Mr. Jacklin.
Mr. Severns, you said that bike lanes would cost about $1 million?
Bike lanes?
Yeah.
Well, to widen the road, yes.
I'm just kidding. I wouldn't spend it on bike lanes. That'd be irresponsible. Fun, but irresponsible. I think I would open it up to the people as well. I think allowing people to be involved in that sort of thing. Also, I was just curious, Is this like an Austin Powers situation where you meant to say billion?
No, it's 1 million is correct.
So with 1 million, I think it would be appropriate to open it up to the people and get their input, because I feel like the people tend to only become involved when things are bad or when they're scary, when people feel anxious. That's when they get involved. I think using a $1 million grant to bring public opinion on the development of the city would make people engaged in a very positive way. Did you put the sign up? 0? Did you do it a while ago? I'm sorry, man. Well, I'll keep a better eye next time.
Mr. Yashnyk.
Again, as been mentioned before, $1 million doesn't go very far when you're talking about infrastructure, public utilities projects. So, personally, when I look at it, I would put it towards either providing some type of safety equipment for our public safety forces, or doing something in the parks. But again, putting it out for public input would be the best way to do it. What do they see as something that they would be willing to invest $1 million in?
Ms. Shoman.
So I really can't disagree with the majority on this one. I do think, we're all here because we want the public's involvement. I do think there are things that if you open it to the public but you limit it, so say it's a park project or say it's a utility project, that might be a good way to get more consensus, and if there's issues that we're really facing. So I think the first thought when you said $1 million, I was like, put it towards the water. And I think that's just because we're looking at 7% increase, 11% increase over the next 3 years, and that's going to be a burden on the people. But you also know $1 million, while it sounds like a lot, it doesn't go that far. So if it could be something that involves engagement and the people to be involved and interested, that's worth a lot. So I have to agree with everyone and say that those things are important, and it's a great way to build that community, build that trust, and come up with something great.
Mr. Miller.
Yes. I do agree with what everyone is saying in that kind of circumstance, that it would be, right to take it before the public and ask them what we should do with it. I'm a little bit hesitant to think that we would ever agree on any one thing to do with it. So from my own personal experience, and just speaking from that, if I would come across a windfall like that personally, I think the first thing that I would look to do is be fiscally responsible and probably put that $1 million toward our debt.
Thank you, everybody. I'll hand it back over to Cheryl now.
I do want to take a quick second again and thank you all for coming out, and also give a shameless plug. If you're not a member of Knox Pages, start at the source and go to knoxpages.com/members. Vote 25 at checkout, and you get a 25% discount off of all of the membership plans. I also want to say a thank you to Brittany Schock, who is recording this for us tonight, and it will be up on our website sometime tomorrow. And Brittany is our Solutions and Engagement Editor at the source. So thank you, Brittany, for doing that. Okay. We've heard many comments about landlords not keeping rental properties in good condition and aesthetically pleasing. Is this a problem, and what would you do to fix it? Mr. Yashnyk.
The way to address that issue, again, is through enforcement of zoning codes and the public ordinances that have been enacted already. And I think the city has done a good job with hiring a city inspector and creating a department that is responsible for going out and identifying these issues and contacting people to address them. So that's the way to do it. As the issues are identified, enforce your zoning codes, enforce your public ordinances as far as public sanitation and public safety, and get it done that way.
Mr. Miller.
Yeah, to me, pretty simple solution there. I think I just sick Scott Zimmerman on them to enforce the code and everything and stuff like that and keep things up. I think he's done a really good job with what he's done thus far about cleaning up some of the issues of, you know, dead and abandoned cars sitting around and stuff like that. He's just getting started with the job and everything, and there's a lot more that could be done, so that would be a great starting point right there.
Ms. Shoman.
So I agree that the city just redid its zoning, and we do have a code enforcement officer now, and he seems to be doing a lot of work, and I think they're even reporting numbers and things like that, where he's evaluating the properties and abandoned cars and things like that. So I do think that's a step. I also think long-term that revitalization of different neighborhoods that are maybe a little bit more run down, making sure that we know, hey, there's grants available or things that people can do to reinvest in the community and the houses. There are tax breaks available. Those kinds of things can help bring up or allow people to improve in their properties and bring those property values up. And I think that's important for just long-term consideration.
Mr. Severns.
Yes, Mr. Zimmerman and his crew have done a good job. I think that was a very wise position for us to hire and expand. You know, some properties are dilapidated that are rentals, and I believe, you know, we have a country that we sometimes think we just need to create new laws. We probably don't need any new laws. We just need to enforce the ones that are on the books. And quite frankly, that's what all Mr. Zimmerman is doing presently with some of the properties and the cars and things. So I think if we just follow through and enforce that, I mean, maybe meetings with specific landlords that are not keeping their properties up would be important. Maybe that's already happening, but I believe that we want the city to look good and clean, and I think it does matter. Thank you.
Mr. Jacklin.
I don't really know what you can do at this point beyond raising public awareness of what the code enforcement officer can do and raising awareness about renters' rights. So empowering the people who are living in these places to be able to speak up and connect with the correct people to handle this issue for them.
Mr. Reed.
I guess first of all, I appreciate the efforts. I can see some improvements on the homes, specifically on Columbus Road. There's been some betterment to the community out there as far as aesthetically. I think as far as the dilapidated buildings we've mentioned, I think it goes further than just that. This one does hit home with me, kind of personally a little bit. There are some homes in my neighborhood which, yes, not just dilapidated, but I think are in violation of residential code enforcement, and it has caused some problems in our community. Not just for aesthetics, but for safety of those in the community. And I think our zoning commission needs to crack down on that and be strict with the landowners, the property owners, and hold them accountable to some time, because it is an issue which we do need to address.
This question is for the 3rd Ward candidates. How do you feel about high-density housing? Mr. Yashnyk.
I think high-density housing is part of a solution as we try to expand. I know in the past, residents of the county and the city as well have expressed a desire to maintain the rural character of Knox County. Well, as the county continues to grow, the only way to maintain that rural character is to develop in certain areas some high-density housing. You know, you can't always develop on 5-acre lots, because eventually you'll run out of land to do it. So as the county grows, as the city grows, high-density housing does have to be part of that solution.
Ms. Shoman.
So as someone who's running in the 3rd Ward and who has fought against high-density housing, I think that high-density housing has a place. I am not sure, it has to be carefully considered. It is not something that you can just put in the middle of a traffic congested area and expect that there's not going to be problems. And if this question was referring to something like the Vernon View property, that it was originally, you know, 3-story houses condos, apartments. You had over 400 units, which is over 400 people coming out onto Vernon View, and then consequently onto Coshocton in areas that we already have major traffic issues. I think high-density housing has a place, and I don't think in already congested areas where we have problems with traffic, that's appropriate.
Mr. Jacklin.
I am a proponent of high-density housing. I think it's how you keep Mount Vernon affordable. Right now, a starter home is $400,000. Well, $300,000 to $400,000. The median income of Mount Vernon, I know the city says it's $80,000, but if you look at the census, it's like 62. That is not something that is affordable for most of the people in Mount Vernon. And I think that it is important for us to consider everybody in this city when we build housing and what this city will look like as a result of it. I mean, maybe it seems uncomfortable at first, but when you drive down Vine Street, are you thinking, oh my God, this is terrible? No, you're seeing all the beautiful trees. You're seeing how easily it is to walk downtown. I think there are growing pains with it, but I think high density housing, is that the zero? My bad, it's necessary.
What are the most important things that need to happen relating to growth? And this is for all of the candidates. And we will start with Mr. Jacklin.
I could have just kept rolling, right? All right, did you hit go? I'm on, all right. Can you ask the question? I distracted myself.
Yes. What are the most important things that need to happen relating to growth?
Well, I think having an adequate infrastructure, planning it appropriately, this is a huge question. Planning it appropriately, and I would love to see more of Mount Vernon as we expand, develop the character that historic Mount Vernon has. And I don't want like me personally, I guess, as we grow, and it's inevitable that it's gonna happen, I don't want Mount Vernon to end up like Pickerington or Hilliard or Dublin, where it's just overcrowded and strip malls. If you look at the areas that we have that are classically Mount Vernon, if you roll down the street, if you go to any of the music festivals, the porch concerts, those are we need to keep those sorts of things in community building in mind when we develop the city more. Is that the zero? Man, I'm crushing you right now, and I'm sorry.
Mr. Reed.
Well, I think, yes, we're looking at a lot of new houses coming into Mount Vernon. Upper Gilchrist Road, they're expanding big time there. We're going to be getting more on Route 13 South and possibly others. First of all, the most important thing, I think, public input and planning, okay? Have to have a plan in place because it is going to be difficult to how to figure it. So we need that input, we need the planning. As far as the extra homes coming in of these developments, I do think the rerouting Route 13 through town will be beneficial for that. As we get more traffic in town, we need to get that traffic flow, keep it moving, as we are also addressing on Coshocton Avenue as well. But as far as planning that, we need to come up with a plan and get the public input with that. That's a priority with those, along with those.
Ms. Shoman.
So I do think anytime that you have major growth, it needs to be planned for, and I think that we need to make sure that our infrastructure meets the needs of that growth. I also think that you can build developments and you can have homes, but I think that making sure that we're growing with the industrial industry is going to be key. Having those jobs there and having jobs that will actually allow people to afford those homes, I think those are going to be key factors in growth that we need to see and that we should probably focus on.
Mr. Severns.
Yes, so infrastructure, obviously everybody's saying that, and that is critical. We have to have the funding to improve the infrastructure. Jennifer just mentioned the jobs, and yeah, we need jobs in Mount Vernon, but they need to be living wages. So, and I believe Sam Filkins and the Area Development Foundation is doing a good job of bringing some quality companies into the Heartland Commerce Park right now, and that's important. So housing has to be affordable, and so we have to probably focus on density, because that probably will make the houses a little bit less expensive. And then the other thing I think that is critical with growth is that safety has to be critical. There's not one person in here that doesn't want to say that I feel safe when I walk outside of my home. I want to feel safe. And I think it's critical that we make sure that we keep our safety forces to keep up with the growth. I'm not particularly thinking that Mount Vernon is going to grow by thousands and thousands and thousands of people. It might grow by several hundred or 1,000 or 2 in the next 5, 10, 15 years, but I don't really see Mount Vernon growing exponentially. That's my opinion.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, in a word, I would say infrastructure would be a main concern of that. It's kind of ironic that we sit here and talk about smart growth. At the same time, we're complaining about some of the issues like the Shockton Avenue and some of the other traffic patterns that we have. If we want to be successful in growing our community in the right way, we're going to have to focus on the infrastructure first. It's kind of like the old saying, you know, if you build it, they will come.
Mr. Yashnyk?
Again, looking at growth, our focus has to be on making sure that the public safety, public utilities, and infrastructure services are in place to handle the anticipated growth. So the priority does need to go there. Affordable housing is key. Living wage jobs is key. But unless you're providing those first 3 things, public safety, public utilities, and infrastructure, it makes the economic and community development a lot more difficult. So again, if we focus our priorities on the things that we've talked about all evening here, again, public safety, public utilities, and infrastructure, that is going to facilitate the growth as we go forward.
I also want to mention that we do have snacks out in the foyer, and after we're finished here, the candidates will stick around for a while to answer any questions that we might not have touched on, or anything you want to go into a little bit more in depth. So that concludes our candidate questions. So the candidates will now have, we're actually running a couple minutes ahead, so they'll have 2 minutes to make their closing comments. And we will start with Mr. Jacklin, and we'll just go down the table.
I'm gonna talk really slow because I planned for 1 minute. No, first I'd like to thank everybody who, well, 1, all of you guys who showed up. That's a necessary part of this process. And then 2, these 2 guys right here. And the guy in the green, I'm sorry, is that green or brown?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I kept not seeing the 0. But everybody else here who made this happen. So yes, I'm running for the 3rd ward seat. I would like to let you guys know that I'm a social worker by profession and trade, that I've worked as an advocate, as a therapist. I have written formal directives and memorandums. I've navigated federal and state policies. I've balanced large budget expenditures while working at the Columbus Veterans Hospital. Whoa, there's a 60-minute sign. I've hired people, and I've worked in some of the largest bureaucratic environments that exist in this country. So I'm very familiar with the process of navigating those things. I've worked at the state government, and I've worked at the federal level. And my profession is guided by a code of ethics. And I have taken the oath of enlistment for this country, and I've taken the oath of office. I take the serving people very seriously, and it has been my life's work to serve not just this community, not just this state and this country. And now I would like to humbly ask you for the opportunity to serve this town. 0? Ooh. Got you this time.
Mr. Yashnyk?
Again, as Taylor said, big thank you to Knox Pages for taking the initiative to host this and give us a forum to express ourselves here. Thank you to the folks that took the time to submit questions, and to all of you that have taken time out of your busy day to sit here and listen to us this evening. I really do appreciate that. In evaluating the opportunity to run for council, the big thing I looked at was, do I have the ability to make a difference? And I think that I do. My background is varied. I've been involved in engineering and operations management. I've been involved in financial services, direct sales. I've been involved in the utilities industry, so I have a very varied background. I've been responsible for capital improvement projects, so I know how large capital improvement projects work. And I've also been responsible for negotiating, millions of dollars in supply contracts. So I do have that background. But the biggest thing is I have a commitment to make a difference in the community. So in running for this, my commitment to you is I will make every effort to ensure that your concerns are heard in City Hall, but also I will make every effort and commitment to make sure that the administration's activities, that our activities are communicated back to you. One of the things that I commit to doing is I've already actually set up a phone line where you can access me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, by voicemail or by text, where you can give me communicate concerns to me. And my commitment to you, if you leave your name, number, and contact information, I will respond to you as to your concerns.
All right, so I also want to thank everyone for being here tonight and for the opportunity to speak. When I created the campaign slogan, "Showing Up for You," it meant more than being physically present, because that's not enough. Our voices must be heard, respected, and reflected in the decisions being made. Engaging with city administration and council on the Edgewood Road resolution showed me just how important real representation is. It's what moved me from being a concerned citizen to a committed candidate. If honored to serve you, I will do more than just cast votes. I'll ask tough questions, do the research, and make sure you're informed and included every step of the way. I want to strengthen communication between City Hall and our neighborhoods, advocate for responsible budgeting, and promote development that truly benefits our community. Real change doesn't happen behind closed doors. It happens when we show up, speak up, and build trust together. If you believe that local government should work with the people and for the people, I humbly ask for your support and that you write in Jennifer Shoman as your third ward candidate. Thank you.
Yes, I also would like to thank Knox Pages for having this event this evening, as well as thanking Woodward Theater here and everything to allow us to be here. And most importantly, to thank everybody that took the time out of their busy schedules to be here tonight. I'm kind of the old man here, I guess. I'm 65 years old. I'm the only one retired. I don't know if that's an advantage or a disadvantage, because I've worked my whole life, and after retirement and everything, I've been very, very fortunate. And I felt like I wanted to find a way to give back to my community. And I thought doing this and undertaking this endeavor and getting involved in the community would be a very positive way to achieve that. Having said that, yes, I am retired, so I'm not going to be doing this part-time, okay? I don't have any other job. This isn't going to be a hobby. This isn't going to be a second job to me. Okay, this is something I am 100% committed to doing. I'm very responsive to the people and everything. I love to talk to people. I mean, I'll talk to anybody, anyone that knows me will tell you that and everything, but I also like to listen and stuff too. And I know I've said this before, but I really mean it. If you run into me at Kroger's, I'm not going to run and hide from you, okay? I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to listen to your concerns, and I'm going to take those concerns back to City Council. And I'm going to do everything I can to improve the communication between council and the citizens of the council. And I want to take your views and your opinions to the council meetings to where everybody has a voice. I believe everybody has the opportunity to have a voice. And having said that, thank you very much, and I ask for your vote on November 4th.
Yes, and thanks to Cheryl and Knox Pages for doing this tonight for us. I am a 40-year resident of Mount Vernon, and I do care deeply for my community. I've raised 3 children here, have now 6 grandchildren here, and I would love to just have an input on making sure my family does have a good community to continue to grow in a safe, functioning community. I spent more than 25 years working in different media outlets. I covered town councils and school boards. We're at four different communities. I learned how these organizations work. I see what those people do, and I've met a lot of good people, been involved with that. A lot of good city officials, organizations, made some good contacts and some good relationships with them, and I really look forward to continuing in strong relationships with them. And in doing so, I would be committed to not only being a committed council person, but being there continually, not being absent, but being there for you and listening to what you have to say and taking that to council and doing my best to represent you. Again, thank you for your time. Alan Reed, write me in. I would appreciate it.
Thank you again as well to Cheryl and Jack and Knox Pages for hosting this and for all of you coming. This is very good. It's important to do this. This is kind of a year of 40 for me. Alan mentioned the year of 40, but I have lived in this community for 40 years. Actually, if you add the 4 years of being a college student at MV and C back then, I've been here 44 years. So I have worked in Mount Vernon for 40 years. I've been married to my one and only love for 40 years. And I hope that speaks to some longevity in the community. This is where I live. This is where I raised my kids. I care about how Mount Vernon looks and how it feels and how safe it is and those things. So I would appreciate your vote anywhere between now and November 4th, because you can vote early. I already did that a week or so ago. I want to invite public input. I said this a little bit earlier, but we don't receive as much communication from people as you might expect. We have email addresses, we have phone numbers, and we would like you to contact us, so please do that. The other thing I would note, and I'm the only one currently up here that's holding a seat on council, it is a lot easier to talk about being on council than to actually be on council and to deal with the issues day in and day out and have to vote and make decisions that affect the city residents. I know, and these are all good people and good comments tonight, but I'm just going to tell you, it's a little bit different when you actually have to make a decision and vote, cast a vote for things that often cost residents a lot of money. The other thing I would say is that I just want to reiterate that I appreciate you coming, and please vote. This is not a national election this year, so there's anticipation that maybe the vote will be down, but you have the option to get out and vote, and I'd say take that right and do it. Thank you.
We certainly thank our candidates for coming out and agreeing to participate in our candidate conversation, and for you folks, for coming and listening. I also wanted to say thank you to Josiah and Evan for keeping us on track. You did a wonderful job with that. I do want to say thank you to Dina for allowing us to use the Woodward again. It's a beautiful venue, and it's perfect for something like this. So just a reminder, we do have snacks in the foyer, and the candidates will be available to talk a few more minutes if you would like to talk with them. So thank you, and safe travels going home.